All right, welcome back. It's time for us to get into some more conversations here on Breakfast Daily. It's very exciting for me because it's a subject matter that I particularly enjoy discussing. We'll be talking to the executives from Wines of South Africa. And of course, there was an event on Saturday evening right here in Accra, the Movenpick Ambassador Hotel. And I have with me Siobhan Thompson, who's the CEO of the Wines of South Africa, as well as Matome Mbata, who is the African Marketing Manager of Wines of South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome.
Good morning.
All right.
Good morning.
Good to have you here. Yeah, now let's delve into this right away. This year is, how many years since we began having Wines of South Africa?
This was our seventh installment, in essence, of doing activations, annual grand tasting.
Okay.
So it's been around for some time.
That's a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was there. It was very exciting for me. It's the first time I've been. I love the event because it sort of, for me, fills a space that I think is quite needed within the Ghana conversation. You know, what has it been like for you, considering what we used to do before pre-COVID, and then looking at it now on Saturday evening? How was the general experience for yourself?
I think it was incredible. I think the amount of people who attended the event, the thirst for, in inverted commas, thirst for knowledge, to experience wines, to engage with them, I think was really amazing. The vibe in the room, the energy.
Yeah.
So there's really been a strong comeback after COVID, and interest in wine.
What about you, Mbata?
I think for us, there's a lot of groundbreaking initiatives that we've started. And if you looked at the exhibitors, the number was big. And over and above that, the number of attendees also increased.
Yeah.
We also had this groundbreaking moment of working closely with the Ghanaians. The chocolatiers that were there were one of the highlights.
Yeah.
I think the fact that we've been preaching this, that we want to see collaboration and finding ways of working together, and evidently we did so on Saturday. So that was a good thing to see, that we're creating opportunities not just for South African wines coming into Ghana, but also for Ghanaian businesses to flourish and grow as well.
Let's talk a little bit about South African wines. I mean, South Africa is, you're looking at what, number 8 in the world in terms of producing wine globally. That's pretty impressive. What would you say accounts for this?
Yeah. I think it's important to remember that South Africa's been making wine for 366 plus years.
Oh, wow.
So we've got a long established history from when the Europeans first came to South Africa and bought vines and started making wine. But most importantly, I think the growth in South African wines happened probably in the last 20 years when our winemakers have had that exposure to go overseas and learn more about winemaking and come back. So we've really established ourselves as a global player. And most importantly, a global player of consistently good quality wines that can stand up to the best in the world.
Matome, the COVID pandemic, how much of an impact did that have? And then looking at coming back from COVID, would you say you've recovered or recovering?
I would speak to the Ghana market. I think we've recovered from obviously not being in the market for 2 years, being frustrated, being not able to travel. Our event is now seen as an annual event that the Ghanaians look forward to. So it did impact somewhat. But the beauty of it is that we've seen growth, which means there's more appreciation of wine in general, but better still, South African wine. I think the fact that, as I've seen the numbers grow in terms of the attendance, we also seen numbers grow in terms of imports into the market. So there has been a good spin-off in terms of the thirst that Siobhan spoke of has actually gotten to a point where the wine then also becomes a drink of choice, and we're pushing for that by appreciation because of the health benefits, amongst other things, and the fact that it's a lovely sociable a beverage to have. So we have seen growth. We are appreciating that. At least this is a growing market for us.
I know that your exports are largely to Europe. Africa doesn't seem to come up very much on the list in terms of patronage. What's what's the challenge here? I mean, is it that we don't necessarily have a culture already for wine, or the Europeans having more of a history behind them?
And that is the actual fact. I mean, there's a history. That's why it's called traditional markets, because they've been exposed. One of the things is that Africa is beginning to appreciate wine.
Okay.
There will be some changes that we will see, that the focus, as we are now channeling the energy more into the continent, it's because it's growing markets. The future of wine drinking is in Africa. Yes, by history, traditionally the European markets have been exposed for too long. And that's why you'd see in some of the African countries such as Angola or Mozambique, because they have that wine drinking culture. That is the reason, that's the driver. But at least what we are seeing is the efforts we're putting towards education, because that's one of the problems we're running. Coming into Ghana, we don't just bring wine, we also help upskill people, give them training on wine etiquette, but also appreciating wine. So the advantage of it is not just drinking, upskilling people so that they can look into a career path with the wine. Hospitality is huge.
Let's talk a little bit about the wine culture. Wine drinking is a very elitist, sophisticated culture. That's at least from the perspective that I see it from. I think a lot of people may say that, well, I mean, with all the economic challenges that we have, can we, afford to be indulging in something that, is for the upper, echelons of society? How would you position yourself to sort of tap into this other market and say that it doesn't have to be that expensive for you, or elitist?
I think it's a very good point. Wine isn't elitist. I think that's the most important thing that we talk about when we do training with be it consumers or store attendants, is that don't be afraid of wine. It's accessible. Don't worry about the smell or the taste that you're told you should smell or taste. Really discover it for yourself. And I think you speak about it being high priced. I think there is wine accessible at all levels to all people. And it's about your own journey of discovering wine. So if you don't know, if you've never eaten a strawberry, how can you be told this smells like strawberry or tastes like strawberry? It must really be your experience. I think too often there are big words that are used for wine and people don't understand them. And I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring wine to you, the consumer, be it in Ghana, be it in South Africa, wherever around the world. But for you to experience it in your own life stage, your own lifestyle, that you can relate to it. So I think once people get over that barrier, they realize how accessible it actually is, and that you can have a light or a sweeter wine, or a dry or a more sophisticated wine. On this day you want a lower price wine, on this day you want a higher price wine. So if you go to fine dining, sure, you're going to have an expensive bottle of wine and enjoy it. But I think there is a wine for everybody. And we welcome people into that world.
But tell me, so there's Californian wines, there's French wines, there's South African wines. How does South Africa compete against some of these global brands?
I think to kickstart, it is an African wine. Solely because it comes from the continent, the southern tip of the continent. And I think as fellow Africans, we need to embrace each other's products, and this being an African product, it means it's differentiated. We come from a very diverse environment. South Africa is very diverse in the form of terroir, in terms of the landscape, in terms of the soil, in terms of the location where vines are grown. So there's a lot of diversity in the very wine that you consume. That's differentiating us. The wineland experience in South Africa, tourism perspective, brings a lot of totally different experience which differentiates South Africa to any other wine region in the world. The stories of how wine is produced, of the winemakers, that's what makes South African wine unique. The fact that we're sitting here today talking about initiatives to demystify wine, to Siobhan's point, make Ghanaians feel comfortable that they can take a fufu and actually compare it and pair it with South African wine. Take your local dish and local experience with South African wine. But because it's an African product, it should automatically fit in. We are different like that.
Okay, how would I, as a novice of sorts, identify a good wine? What will we be looking at? What should I be looking out for?
And one thing about wine, it's to your opinion.
Okay.
And that's why Siobhan said earlier, across the spectrum, you can find different levels of different wine. But good wine is what, when you nose it and when you taste it, you find that you appreciate it, it's easy and speaks to you from a palatable perspective. Yeah. You taste by eye, you actually start looking at the wine, it must be attractive. So that's why it's important that it's never taken light, that it's just wine. Prepare for yourself, appreciate yourself more that you're drinking a very good product. So therefore it varies. I mean, as your palate gets sophisticated and gets asking people to do, try as many wine and you'd find what you define as the fine wine might not be to Siobhan's standard, but to your standard.
I like that. All right, so back to the event that took place on Saturday evening. What were your highlights?
Oh, I think this was the biggest party this weekend Ghana had. Accra had the biggest party. And I've seen the clips and the links of some of the reports. Very positive. There's been a 2-year break when there was never an event to this magnitude. And it happened, and it was bigger, well attended, a bigger number of producers. And the highlight, as I earlier said, the chocolatiers collaborating with Wines of South Africa.
I think that was brilliant.
I've always been saying this. The Kwame Nkrumahs have always said, as visionaries, how do we bring Africa together? African Union was formed with a vision of growing intra-trade. Wines of South Africa, Ghana chocolatiers are living the dream. We're making it a reality.
Looking forward to the future. What are your hopes and aspirations, Siobhan?
For us, you spoke about Africa. For our hopes and aspiration is that Africa becomes one of our lead continents, put it that way. And I think we've been watching the Ghana market and see how it's, watch how it's grown. We've seen about 57% increase in the last year. So I think for me, my aspiration is really to see, as part of Africa, the African continent, play a bigger role. It is part of our strategy to grow. And I think Mutumi and I will be visiting the markets a lot more now that hopefully COVID has subsided, and to go from strength to strength and get consumers into South African wine, trying it, drinking it on a regular basis, whether they're relaxing around the pool or at their home, or whether they're in a fine dining restaurant.
Well, I definitely walked away with a favorite on my mind of the wine, the different producers. Can I tell you my favorite?
Of course you can.
You're at liberty. You're at liberty.
Cape Dreams.
I love
Cape
it.
Dreams.
I found Cape Dreams to be subtle. It sort of sneaks up on you. It's not in your face. When you swirl around and sniff, it doesn't jump out at you. There are a few that did, and that was also interesting to experience. But this was kind of like subtle. But when you do drink it, it's kind of like a smooth feeling. I enjoyed that.
I'm glad to hear that. It speaks to exactly what I said, that consuming wine and finding what you prefer is about experiencing, trying different wines. And you'll remember the one that actually speaks to you. Demystifying wine says, don't be afraid, try as many as you can. It's the only way you can actually train your palate to actually be to those levels of being able to choose. And it's not about the lingo of swelling, slapping and sniffing. Let people taste it the way they feel comfortable.
They want to,
And that's the way in which I think wine should be consumed. I'm glad to hear that you have one that you appreciate.
I've definitely chosen Cape Dreams.
Wonderful, that's good.
At least for 2022, that's the reigning champion for me.
Wonderful.
See, we created a brand ambassador.
There we go.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning on Breakfast Daily. It's been an exciting conversation. Thank you.
We appreciate
wonderful.
it. Yes, it's been great.
Thank you.
We're speaking with Siobhan Thompson, who's the CEO, and Matome Mbata, who's the Africa Marketing Manager for Wines of South Africa. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. I'm going away.